Well, Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. One of her advocacy, make medicine for liberation and wholeness, where science meets soul. No other than Dr. Jill Stucker.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Dr. Jill, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself? That I has.
Sure. So I am a traditionally trained physician, board certified in family medicine, and I did private practice for approximately 16 years. And then I uh, started diving into another area, which was kind of the start of what's now known as integrative medicine or functional medicine. Some people also refer to it as longevity medicine, age management medicine, hormone optimization. And so that had such a profound impact on myself, literally feeling like I woke up to my life, that I wanted to share that with my patients. And so that's what I started practicing and helping other people wake up to their lives. And in the course of doing that, I also did some trauma informed medicine training with Dr. Gabor Mate and his compassionate inquiry technique and many other um, modalities that I was looking into and really realized there was so much overlap between all of the signs and symptoms that traditional medicine wants to just put people into a box and give them a in the box diagnosis of depression, anxiety, ADHD, and all the same symptoms to diagnose those things are also all the same symptoms of hormone imbalance and or trauma. And so I that's what I practice now. And as you mentioned, it's where science meets soul. And a lot of the things that I learned in my training was after medical school. And that's what people are so desperately needing in these times to be able to connect on a soul level and feel safe, seen, and celebrated and heard so that they can wake up to their own lives and their own selves and reclaim their vitality and that inner true essence and what I say, the wild self.
The Wild Self. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Jill. And today let's talk about how does trauma affect person's hormones. So, Dr. Jill, the immediate impact of our body system, what trauma occurs, the body releases a cocktail of stress hormones like cortisol or adrenaline. Can you walk us through exactly how this cascade is meant to save our lives at that moment?
Exactly. The cascade actually starts during birth. So all of the hormones that are pumping through the womb that are happening with the mother. If the mother is stressed during the pregnancy, has a traumatic birth, any of those things, those endorphins are getting fed to the fetus, and that's imprinting on the nervous system. So that already you already start with pre-verbal trauma, whether you know about it or not, and that can also be generational, going back. Some people say 7 generations, 12 generations, and so that's what's imprinted into the person's nervous system, and that's how they travel through life and survive life. And that's what our brains are designed to do is to look for danger and to save our life. As we age and we're going through things, we do find safety at some point, whether it's in the family system or within life. and um, a different baseline is happening. But anytime, in particular, women, and this has to do with women and men, um, when our survival is threatened, and a lot of people think trauma, big T trauma, which is sexual trauma, death in the family, abuse. There's also, like I said, the pre-verbal trauma. There's the trauma of everyday life and the stress of everyday life that is having an effect on your body, on your nervous system, and then that cascade of hormones. And so what happens is, when we feel safe within our own body, when we have regulated hormones, then that's when our body is creating a home within itself, and it's ready to nest. And in particular for women, that's setting up for more hormone production, for reproduction. Although our hormones are more than just for reproduction, they're very important with longevity. And this also affects you know women who are looking at like perimenopause, menopause, um, age, and choices that they're forced to make in terms of whether to move forward with certain surgeries, to keep their ovaries, to not keep their ovaries. And this is super important and super new, is that the ovaries are actually tied to women's longevity. They're not just for reproduction. So a lot of times the old way of thinking was, we'll just take everything out. So I want to give you that latest and greatest up to date, that ovaries affect a woman's longevity. So it's really important, if possible, to keep them, and to keep them functioning. And how do we do that? That's creating that nesting, like, safe home, which is balanced hormones, but it's also balanced environment and balanced nutrition. Anytime any of those are off, whether it's relationships, if we're having not so healthy diet, if we're stressed because we're moving, changing careers, having marital discord, all of the above, our body goes into like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, um, state, and it shuts down. That's not the time to be reproducing. So again, this does pertain to men as well. It shuts down our production of hormones that are vital for not just longevity, but for quality of life, for energy, mental clarity, um, sex drive, sleep, self confidence, mood, all of these things. And so that's there's not a one size fits all answer for this. There's not like at one point in the cascade where you can affect that, but also the hormones directly affect those parts of the brain that are the reptilian brain, the amygdala, that fight or flight response. So, like when we're being chased by a bear, the estrogen receptors actually help to calm that center down. So, women who are traveling through perimenopause and menopause who have experienced trauma are going to experience perimenopause and menopause a bit differently, because that amygdala has been like super sensitized. And so when you get that drop of estrogen, there's going to be not necessarily the traditional hot flash night sweat. There's going to be like a panic, and a flooding of the system, and that then shuts down the prefrontal cortex. So we can't be creative and have executive decision making when we are in survival mode. So there's a big cascade with that. Then there's also, as you mentioned, the cortisol function. And we need cortisol for when we're being chased by a bear, but we're not always being chased by a bear. But as I mentioned, a lot of those other factors will kind of create uh, an alarm, like there's a fire within the house. So making sure that the home, the internal home, the body system feels safe to move forward, then the other parts of the brain can come online to access creativity, executive function, all of those things. Also, when the cortisol eventually gets to burnout, um, it affects the thyroid levels, and the thyroid is needed for mental clarity, energy, mood, metabolism. And so that becomes the receptors become 50% less responsive. So it's just this like hamster wheel and vicious cycle of, creating a safe environment within your own home, within your own body, to be able to function and move through all of those things. And there's several books that I can recommend regarding all of the specifics, and these are part of the ones that I've trained with. There's Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. The Body Keeps the Score is very well known by Bessel van der Kolk. And then when the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate. And that really details, as you mentioned, the cascade and symphony of the hormones and how they are affected by people who have trauma. And sometimes people don't realize they have trauma stored in their body. They just have random aches and pains that migrate because they're not actually able to access their feelings, and they're not aware that they have that trauma, whether it's their trauma or, like I mentioned, it could be generational trauma, it could be collective trauma, collective racial trauma is stored in the body, and those things can get flared up. And those are messages for us. But those books are really good at detailing the specific hormones and the cascade and um, how everything works with that. So I highly recommend those.
Dr. Jill, for many, the trauma ends, but the hormonal alarm bell keeps ringing. What does it mean?
Well, um, the body will whisper until it will scream. So if we don't listen to the whispers, which a lot of times, when we are, especially, I'm going to speak from the female perspective, from the mom perspective, female
Yes.
entrepreneur, physician. There's a lot going on, and so when you are running a business, practicing medicine, raising children, furthering your practice, all of those things, you don't necessarily have time to pay attention to that ache or pain that you have. You just have to function. You just need to get things done. So a lot of times, and I see this particularly in women, it's not until, for me, it was I lost half of my hair. Um, and that got my attention to know like there's something wrong. And that's why I got into this field. My labs were normal, but I knew there was something else going on. So for other women, it could be, just complete exhaustion, no matter how much sleep they get. Or, as I mentioned, the migratory aches and pains. A lot of people get like a frozen shoulder symptom, or just a feeling of they don't quite feel themselves, or they feel like a shell of themselves, or they feel dead inside, or they have random anxieties and just don't have the self confidence that they used to. So that alarm bell can be really subtle or it can be really loud. It can be as loud as a heart attack, for women or for men. The other thing, is for women, dry vagina, for men, erections. Those things are as serious as a heart attack. Those are messages of like, hey, there's a hormone imbalance. There's something that we need to pay attention to. So, not really taking time, to practice that self-care. It's just like they say when you get on an airplane, like, put the oxygen mask on yourself first. So when you notice those things that are creeping up, don't brush them to the side. Really listen to them and don't, medicate them either. They have vital information. And it's important to be able to share them with a practitioner that can hear all of what's going on in your life, and not just the one symptom that you're having, because a lot of times that's just the tip of the iceberg. And y- a lot of people think that these symptoms are just part of getting older, part of going through perimenopause and menopause, and they just need to grin and bear it. And that's so far from the truth. You deserve to live a life filled with vitality at any age. And a lot of times I do the talking with patients and ask them those specific questions, and they answer yes to all of them, but they didn't come to me with those things because they just thought it was part of getting older or part of life, or there was shame around not being able to do it all, and have energy and feel sexy and want to have sex and and build the business and do all the projects. And I think that's one thing, is to do one less thing on your to-do list, and make sure that you are at the top of that list, and do a body scan every morning and every evening to really listen to, like, what do I need. That is going to be one of the best things to do. And then to find out, connect with a practitioner that can help empower you and give you a sense of agency over your own body, especially with people who have undergone trauma. That sense of agency, and being able to ask questions, and to say, no, that doesn't feel good. I don't want to do that thing. That automatically restores them to the driver's seat of their life, which is so vital. And it automatically makes their system feel safer, which again is going to kind of put that nervous system back into rest and digest. And okay, we can make more hormones now, we can have less inflammation, so we can absorb our own hormones, vitamins, and nutrients. So it's a whole process.
Whole process and date. So, Dr. Jill, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
What are my short-term and long-term goals?
Yes, as an entrepreneur, as a mom, or as your profession?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think we have a vision for what, quote, success is, or what we think we want to do when we're younger. And that for me was, I wanted to be a doctor and help people. And so I became that, but it wasn't until I found this particular field and pivoted that I found that I could actually be passionate about what I'm doing. I could enjoy it. I could have fun and help other people. And I think it's so important to find the balance for you, because uh, the kind of the old modality was, work really hard, save, and retire at 50. And, I'm almost 52, and I feel like my life is just starting. Like, I feel like I did the program of what I thought I was supposed to do, and then realized, wait, there's this whole other thing. And so um, never think that it's too late, or you're stuck in whatever position you're in. So for me, I'm still expanding in my career, weaving that soul meets science, and really helping people return to themselves and that inner untamed wild self. Regardless of hormones, I think it's so important to be able to access those pieces themselves. So I am expanding and offering retreats, particularly in Nosara, Costa Rica, which is a blue zone, which is one of the longevity centers, and Sedona, Arizona, which is also a vortex for healing. And they can be private retreats, group retreats, and so they're customized. So that's short and long term, is expanding those services to people and helping spread more awareness to people so they feel more empowered, to be fully present in their lives, and expand themselves as well.
Good luck to your goals, Miss or Dr. Jill. I'm looking forward for more success. So, what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well, if you're listening, then you heard several pieces, but listening to your own self and what's true for you, and that's going to be different for every person. For me, connecting with community is really important. Connecting with family, connecting with nature, and so really embracing some stillness and getting clear. I've always in all of these career pivots and entrepreneurship, I've always written, and I think that helps you get clarity on where you want to go. And it doesn't have to be a tangible thing that you want to do. It could be, I want to write a book, I want to do, this or that. But what are the feelings that you want to feel more of? And so I would really encourage people to be still and think about those things, because most of us don't have the time or take the time to think like, what do I want? And that's how I got into this as well. As I was helping a patient, and I remember she said something about her dream. And I just thought, I don't even know what my dream is, because I just didn't have time, or energy to think about it. So
Mhm.
my dreams now are more, peace and pleasure and passion and fun and play and whatever involves that, and multidimensionality. So really, that would be my recommendation, to get clear on what you want, and because this is your life that you're living, not somebody else's vision for you, or carrying on, the legacy of the family. If that's important for you, great. But you were put on this earth for a reason, and it's up to you to find that reason. And the only way to do that is to really go within and sit with yourself and find out what that is. And it could be to just be the fullest version of you, whatever that looks like.
Thank you for that recommendation, Dr. Jill. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yes. So I happen to have the one that I love,
Mhm.
love, love, especially for women.
Yes.
It's right here. It's Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And it is just amazing. So I would really, really recommend that, for wanting to reconnect with your inner wild woman, your true essence, your true radiance, and for getting more information as far as understanding your body and trauma and things like that. The body keeps the score, and when the body says no, are two key ones. I would also mention that they can be extremely triggering. So take your time, read them at your own pace. Just know that, when you're reading it and you're starting to feel things in your body, there's something there. But it doesn't mean that you have to do the deep dive, within 4 days. Just bite-size increments.
Baby steps, people, baby steps. And thank you for that recommended book, Dr. Jill. So before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its fourth season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Jill, tell us, what is the most important hopeful message from the science of trauma and hormones? What does the research tell us about the body's innate capacity to heal and to find a new balance?
Yes, I think that is so important, to ask, and a lot of people think that they can't do anything about the past, especially if they're is things in the generational trauma, collective trauma. We do get handed down a certain set of, genetics, and there is a field of epigenetics, which means there are certain things that can get turned on or off with environment, with trauma, and that is where your agency comes in. So I have done direct testing on myself and patients and seen results within just 2.5, 3 months, based on targeting specific areas. A lot of people with PTSD have diminished lung capacity because of waiting for the other shoe to drop, not really being able to take a full breath, holding their breath, and that trauma is just keeping them so like frozen in their body. And so when I see that, I really encourage people to get more still and focus more on like restorative yoga, Kundalini, moving energy, to get that out of the body. Because while this, you may not live in the story still lives in your body, whether it's your story, your mom's story, your grandmother's story, it's still in your body, but you have the ability to shift that. And it shifts not just for you, but it shifts for the generations backwards and forwards. And I have seen dramatic results for myself with my own family, with my children, and with my parents. Things getting unlocked for them, and so I think that's really important to actually look at. It's not something I would have known if I hadn't. I mean, I knew it. I had a feeling, but to have the actual data, that's where the science comes in. I am by background, a scientist. My degree is in molecular and cellular biology, and that comes in handy once in a while. So actually getting your data and getting epigenetic testing, most traditional doctors are not going to do that or know about that, but if you contact a specialist in integrative medicine or longevity medicine, most of them will know about the epigenetic testing. And it's information, it's not judgment, it's just information. And you can make shifts in your longevity and lifespan and health span and overall vitality in a matter of just a couple months. That's measurable.
Measurable indeed, Dr. Jill Stucker. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I would invite you to visit my website, www.drjillstocker.com. I have, like I said, upcoming retreats in Costa Rica, and I have a couple of master classes listed on my website as well. So if you're looking to make a pivot in your career or life, I do have a master class for that and a community for that. And I would love to help.
Yes, people, let's support Dr. Jill Stucker because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Dr. Jill, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.